Today we are learning a lesson 11.4, and this comes back to something we've seen before, circumference of circles and arc length. So something old, something new. Circumference, as a reminder, is a perimeter of a circle. And as our memorization tool in the past I brought up in chapter 1, twinkle twinkle little star, circumference equals 2 pi r is the kind of tool for that. And so you could say circumference is 2 pi r or pi diameter. Well, what's r? R is the radius, again, coming from the center of circle to any point on the outer edge or boundary of a circle. Diameter would be a chord going from side to side of a circle that happens to go straight through the center of a circle. So there's radius here, so diameter is 2 pi. So that's why circumference could also be called pi times diameter or diameter times pi. So what we're going to be doing is using our circumference information to help us find radius, diameters, things like that. And we're also going to go into finding only portion per se of the circumference. And that formula will come up shortly. So circumference of a circle with radius 6 centimeters is what we're trying to find. So giving us radius, we're going to say circumference is 2 pi r. And then 2 pi times 6, right? Radius is 6, filling it in, gives us 12 pi. There's our answer. Technically, we know what pi is. Pi is the ratio of diameters to the circumference. So that is 3.14 for short. It goes much further than that. So I usually will use a approximation sign if we plug it in, and I get 37.699 on the calculator using the pi button. So I'm not stopping at 0.14 here, and so that will round us up here to rounding this up to a 10, which will round this one up to a 7. So we get 37.70 centimeters. To find the radius of a circle with circumference 32, we're going to have the same setup. Circumference equals 2 pi r, but circumference is 32 this time. So 32 equals 2 pi r. Now, r is our only variable. 2 pi, even though it's a symbol, this is a number. So we're going to divide both sides by 2 pi, and then just doing this on your calculator. Now, beware of doing this on your calculator. Many calculators will tell you that if you do 32 divided by 2 pi, you'll get an error. And by error, I don't mean it will say error, but it will give you the wrong answer. So I'll show you how that works here quickly. So we have 32 divided by 2 pi. My pi button is second the power button. So to me, that looks like what I just wrote, 32 divided by 2 pi. And I got 50. Hopefully, if you've got your kind of math sense on, you'll say, I just divided 32 by a number and I got a larger number. What happened? What this is doing is it's dividing by 2, and since we didn't put a parentheses around it, it is multiplying by pi. So this is the same as 16 pi, which is, 16 times 3 is about 48. So this looks about right. But what you would need to do, and again, you may want to check this out on your calculator, is you need to make sure you have the parentheses there. So I'm just going to kind of overwrite it and see what happens. So now with parentheses, I got the correct answer. Now, maybe you have a different calculator. Some online calculators will make it clear in a fraction form for you, but you could also do divide by 2, also divide by pi, as that seems a little odd, but you get the same correct answer. Now, clearly we're off by quite a bit. One of them is 10 times the other. So that's why you got to be careful about not getting this answer of 50 when we know now the answer is 5.09. So be careful with those TI calculators. Not TI only, but just be aware. And also, this also lets you know is make sure you kind of do a little bit of estimation. Doesn't need to be done on every problem, but 2 times 3.14 is 2 times 3 is 6. So 32 divided by 6 should be, around 5. So that's why 50 did not make sense as soon as I clicked it in. 50? 32 should be getting smaller. 5.09. And don't forget your labels. Again, this chapter and next chapter, it's extremely important to remember your labels. Next, the diameter of a circle whose circumference is 94. Now we're not going to use 2 pi r for circumference when we're solving for diameter, because we could also use that pi times diameter. So that's what we're going to use here. Diameter times pi is circumference, which is 94, and I'm going to divide by pi on both sides. And in this case, you wouldn't need to worry because it will divide by pi, and you get 29.92 feet for your diameter. Moving on. Find the circumference of a circle with diameter 5. Well, circumference is pi times diameter, so 5 pi is approximately 15.71 inches. Next, find the diameter of a circle with 17 feet circumference. Well, we just got 15 there, so our answer should be close to 5, right? Just as a little note, if you run into problems that are similar, my answer here was not the same, but pretty close, so I'll probably get 5 point something. So circumference equals 17, and we're solving for diameter, so circumference equals pi diameter, divide by pi on both sides to get 5.41, right? Pretty similar to our left. Next, I like these types of problems because they're actually applicable a little bit more here. A car tire has a diameter of 28 inches. How many revolutions does a tire make while traveling 500 feet? So generally speaking, right, we're saying how many times does the tire roll around, like complete revolution around, right? If we label the start position on tires, how many times would that happen for it to go 500 feet? Right, so we're going to need to know the circumference because one time around the tire would be one circumference. So circumference is 28 times pi. So again, just the general solving is going to be, we've got feet here, inches here. So we're going to need to do 500 times 12 to get our total inches in 500 feet, and then divide by the circumference to find how many revolutions that would be before I jump into solving like I was doing. So to solve, we need to solve for circumference. Circumference equals pi times diameter, which is 28 pi. I will leave it like this until we solve, because you don't want to round and then round again, and then you're rounding too many times. So we'll say circumference is 28 pi, but just as a number standpoint, it's pretty close to 88. Would be one revolution. Now we're going to do 500 times 12. Again, why 12? This is feet, this is inches, so 500 divided by inches doesn't help. We need the same label. So multiplying 500 by 12, you'll get 6,000 inches divided by about 88 inches, and we get 68 revolutions. So 68.2 revolutions. The arc length. So now what if we only want part of a circumference, right? Well, think about it for a second here. We know a circle has 360 degrees. We just need some angle amount, preferably a central angle here, is what we're going to deal with, to give us, if this is, let's say, 55 degrees, well, this circumference is 55 over 360 times the circumference, which would be 2 pi r or pi diameter, or if they gave us circumference, just circumference. It could also be set up as a ratio of the arc length we're looking for over total equals the degrees of the circle over total degrees in a circle. Either way works. Why would you say there's two different ways? This way they solve for AB already. Cross multiplying the 2 pi r, we get angle over 360 times 2 pi r. Okay, simple enough. So in this example, is we want to find the length of PQ arc. Okay, so arc PQ is here to here. And so we have 9 yards, which is the diameter, because we have this line going side to side. If it wasn't diameter, they'd typically tuck it here next to the radius, or they wouldn't draw the line across, just a note. And so this arc here is 75 degrees, because that's our angle. Arc would match the angle, and we're not going to do any of the tough ones where it's from the side here. It's always going to be a central angle or the other side, which is kind of a very large one, but that would be 360 minus 275. Sometimes they will give you those measures over 180 degrees, just a little note. So 9 yards is diameter. We're going to need the formula. 75 over 360, there's our formula. Angle over 360 times 2 pi r. Well, we've got diameter. This is 2r, right? So 75 over 360 times 9 pi. So we could use pi d, and we get 5.89 yards. Again, make sure it makes sense, right? Diameter, 3 of these make what's going around here. More than 4 of these make the circle. So it does make sense that we're less than 9. Next, circumference of circle N. So we've got circle N, and here's what I was just talking about. This is 270 degrees, and this time they gave us 61.26. When they give it to you like this, they're talking about from here to here, and I don't really want to call it LM because that would be this way, but if we called it LXM and I put an X over here, this arc is 61.26 for the angle that is 270 degrees. Okay, so what's the circumference? Well, we've got the two pieces here. We've got this piece and we've got this piece. We want to go here, right? So let's write it out. We've got 270 over 360 times circumference equals 61.26. Well, we want to solve for C, so this actually simplifies to giving us 3/4, right? This is 3/90s, 4/90s, and so we're going to multiply by the reciprocal 4/3. Now, clearly you could do this in your calculator simplifying like this, 270 over 360, and then on my calculator, I usually hit the math button fraction, 3/4. Most calculators that are not this fancy do have some sort of fraction reducing button. So feel free to look around for that or Google it. So times 4/3 on both sides. To get 4/3 times this is going to be a little over 80, and we get 81.68 for our answer. Another example, find the radius of circle G. So now we have the inner angle and we've got the arc measurement. So again, where you've got 150 over 360 times 2 pi r, because we're solving for radius, will equal 10.5. And I circled the r. This is what we're solving for. These are all numbers. We can just compute these. Now, I would typically recommend one piece at a time. You could do it as a proportion, times 360 divided by 2 times 150 times pi. And then we're going to get 300 pi fourth over 360. If we just kind of simplify this, 2 150s is 300, pi still there, 360 denominator, and now we're going to multiply by its flip. Technically, yes, this would be 6/5 pi, but I just wrote it as this would be the other way to do it if you didn't simplify. And again, be careful when you're dividing by pi. 10.5 times this equals 4.01 feet. Now at first it might not make sense because I'm looking at it like, what? But this is 6/5, but this is 5 pi. So this is really like 6 over 15. So we're dividing by a bigger number, and that's why we get 4.01. And that wraps up today's lesson. Shoot me an email if you have any questions.